welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. Let's just jump right in here. So today, uh, once again, we're dealing with the debacle, and it's becoming increasingly clear to me that the politicians on my side of the aisle are really starting to, how shall I say, and be nice. They're prevaricating. Okay, they have a veracity problem and it continues. And the sad part is the Iranians are mocking our president, and our president is just oblivious to it. He doesn't care, and it's sad, I think, because I think he's being exposed for weakness, and it's a terrible, terrible, terrible portrayal that he's putting out there to the whole world. Saying, hey, look, I talk one way, but I really act another way. So, uh, maybe we're going to make it through this somehow. I don't see it. The Strait of Hormuz, contrary to what everyone is saying, is not completely open. In fact, most what I'm going to call foreign ships, and I mean foreign to the United States and Iran, these foreign ships really haven't decided to take the trip yet because they feel that going through the strait is still too dangerous a situation. And but what has gone through the strait? Well, all those Iranian ships loaded with Iranian oil that they're now selling, they're pocketing all those millions of dollars. And okay, maybe they don't have the money yet. They're going to have to wait a few days till they get the port or whatever. But the Trump administration has shown that they are now willing to fund this regime in Iran. And and I'm still flabbergasted by Senator Johnson saying that they expected the Iranian people to do more to topple their government. Well, Mr. Johnson, stop lying to the public. The Iranian people were told to stand down and that they'll be told when it's time for them to take to the streets. But, Donald Trump, several months ago, he was the one who welcomed the Iranians to go into the streets and take their government back. He said, if they start killing you, we're going to have your back. And they started killing, and they're still killing, and you're deciding now that, yeah, we can deal with these people. They're going to give me a peace deal, and everything's going to go back to normal. No, I don't think so. It's a far cry from that. But I do know this, the Strait of Hormuz needs to get opened and stay opened. And the best solution I heard is when President Trump come out and said, that we'll take it over and we're going to take 20% of the proceeds. That's one of the best ideas I've ever heard. That's why wars used to be fought when countries needed additional land, resources, whatever. And the weak lost their they lost their interest in it, and it's a shame. But this is what we're dealing with day in, day out. We're going to have all this needless negotiation because there's never going to be a final deal. The Iranians are never going to give up their desire to have nuclear weapons. These are religious zealots. You're not gonna defeat. Well, you can defeat them, but you're gonna have to do it militarily. You're never gonna get them to enter into an agreement that they're going to abide by. And so, look, I get it. The president realizes what has happened across the world when you shut off the Strait of Hormuz. And it's going to be really bad. And it's going to get bad here in this country because we've been releasing our strategic reserves, which was never refilled after the Biden emptying it to keep the gas prices low so that they could get reelected. But Americans never learn. There's only one party. There's only one party that's anti-oil. And if you put that one party in power, well, you can't complain about how high your gas prices are going to go. You're just going to be lucky to be able to find gas. Because, see, they think it's the root of all evil, and the sooner they can get rid of it, the better off they'd like it. But Americans, they just sit back and they go on with their daily lives, complaining and suffering because inflation has eroded their buying power and they're struggling to figure out how to pay all their bills. And this is a losing battle. Every month there are more and more people who are unable to pay all their bills, and as such, bills are going unpaid. You're going to see more and more companies going belly up. And this is going to continue. It's going to get really, really bad. And I sometimes say to myself, is this by design? Is it possible that this is all part of the plan? I don't know. But, if I can go off on a little tangent here, I want to point out that, and let me look in and get to the right place. So, Scott Bessent was sworn into office on January 28th, 2025. I mean, it was a quick thing done shortly after the president was sworn into office. And here it is. We're going on a year and a half later. And you know what hasn't happened? Well, wait. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I have tried Googling, and what I'm trying to find out is when Scott Bessent has had the signing ceremony for putting his signature on the new series bill, the new currency. So let me explain this for people who might not know. Paper currency. No, let me back up. Let me go with coinage first. Okay, people are used to seeing new coins, and coins are stamped with the year that they are coined in. And so we're in 2026, so any new coinage that's being pressed by the mint is going to have 2026 on it. It doesn't go the same way with paper currency. With paper currency, you have a series, and you always get a new series, and the series is the actual year at the time when a new series starts. And the first thing they look at is a new Treasury Secretary. So Scott Bessent was sworn in 2025. So the new series will be 2025. Now, routinely what happens is if there is after that initial series goes to print, if the Treasurer of the United States changes, that's when you get like we have in 2017, where we have 2017 and then 2017A. And previously, it was back in the 60s, I think they went up to D. A lot of changes going on back then. So normally what happens is a couple months after a new Treasury Secretary is sworn in, they have a signing ceremony, and this is where they present the signature of the Treasury Secretary that's going to go on the new series bills. And so I find this interesting. So it's something that I always look at. So I go to bep.gov, and if you look at the master index, you'll see where you can go to the production reports and you can go to the monthly production reports. So here we are working on 18 months after Scott Bessent was sworn in. And at least as far as these records show, they have not started switching over to the 2025 series, which is unusual. So that makes me ask, well, is this being done by purpose? Whenever I see something that's such an integral part of the process of our government and it suddenly is changing, I become suspicious. And I'm saying to myself, well, gee, why aren't they printing the new 2025 series bills? I don't understand that. Unless, of course, they're plotting something else. Now, I have no evidence that they're plotting something else. What I do have is this unusual situation in Iran, which is going to cause a worldwide depression. No, let me back up. That's unfair to say that. The worldwide depression started as a result of the Biden administration's policies. At this point, there's nothing that this administration can do to stop this process. The fatal mistake that Donald Trump made was taking credit for the jobs numbers, inflation, everything he was taking credit for, which were phony numbers. They weren't real. They weren't an accurate reflection of what people were finding in their daily lives. And so, people live the economy. They know how bad it is. And they know their spending power has been eroded. You know, I made the mistake of going into a pizza place that's in an area that I don't get to that often, maybe twice a year at most. And I know that this place has the best pizza. And the last time I went there will be the last time I go there because two slices and a drink was like 20 some dollars. I said, you got to be kidding me. I'm not going to go and pay that kind of money for two slices of pizza in a pizza place. And okay, I also had a drink. It's just bizarre. And because of these inflated prices, every month more and more people just can't make their ends meet. And that's stark reality. And so I think our economy's crashing. And maybe, just maybe, the reason they're not printing any new series bills is because, we keep hearing about this thing, this alleged thing, the Great Reset. Well, what is the Great Reset? I don't know. I say to myself, I hope they don't think they're going to reset our national debt down to zero because, boy, will that create a massive amount of problems. I don't know what they're thinking. I know that if they're real and if they're serious and if they really look at everything that's going on, they're going to realize, hey, we got some problems here. And I don't know how this problem can be fixed. You know, I saw where, it was several months ago now, where the Trump administration was saying that they need to do something to make housing more affordable. What can you do? People's salary has to keep going up because prices are going up. And so the cost of the houses are just going up. This is all a result of inflation. And inflation, the actual definition, I'll keep repeating this over and over, is an increase in the money supply. That's simple. When prices go up, that's not inflation, but it is the result of inflation. And so if you understand that when you increase the money, you're going to have problems, you could see why we're experiencing what we are. And the only way, well, the Iran war may ultimately be the only way out of this for us. We need to take that oil, as the president threatened, and we need to charge 20% as we make it available to the world and we keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Now, and I know this is a big if, but if that money that we get from the 20%, okay, let's say we take 5% of that for our actual expenses at the time, and we apply the other 15% to our national debt. perhaps then, and only perhaps, uh, it could be a solution. But somehow we got to get that debt paid down. And if we don't, and we keep borrowing like we are, well, listen to the politicians because they all tell you the same thing. They say what's happening now is unsustainable. And when something is unsustainable, it means it's not going to continue. But nobody is talking about what are we going to do as we approach that time. And nobody is. They're afraid to because they're politicians. They need to get reelected. And in order to get reelected, there are certain things you don't want to do. You don't want to raise taxes. And you shouldn't want to increase spending, at least not to the levels that they're doing. I mean, what they're spending now is absurd. And the only difference between the two parties right now is exactly where that money goes. And it's a shame, but it cannot continue. And there are so many problems with the economy right now, and none of this is being addressed. Instead, we're going through these phony peace negotiations with a country that continues to maintain there are certain things they're not going to give up, and these are things that we're demanding they must give up. So it's going to require our surrender, and that's what Donald Trump is doing. The whole world can see it. Yeah, he gets mad when people say it, but guess what? People see it, they know it. Weeks ago, the German chancellor said that Trump was being played by the Iranians, and they continue to play him, and he continues to, he comes out with, like yesterday, I'm gonna blow the country off the map, and I'm gonna assassinate you people before you get home, and it's all nonsense. People are getting really tired of that. Mr. President, they are not going to act based on your threats. What they're going to do is what's in their best interest. And if you listen to 2CTV, you can watch the video clips of these people explaining what it is they plan to do. And interestingly, their plans don't seem to have any familiar aspects with your plan. They seem to be like two separate, complete, total plans, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So it just seems to me the rational thing to do is go in there, end this debacle. Yeah, I know it might require some troops on the ground, but I don't think it would require troops such as we did in Desert Storm. I don't think that's necessary. We're not really facing a large, intact armed forces. Donald Trump is correct that we've decimated them. Their numbers, you know, they lost so many people in the bombing campaign. You just have to look at some of the footage that the Pentagon released. When you see all of these people running around one of these mobile missile launchers and they take it out, well, guess what happens to all those people around there? They're gone. Okay, they're gone to the mortician. That's what happens. They become prime candidates for mortician services, and so it's a shame that this is the way it is panning out, and it's only going to get worse. It's going to get so far worse. I lament when I think about how bad it's going to get because it's just not a pretty picture. And this on our part is it's all of our own doing. We started the war and then we decided we wouldn't finish it and we would do an alleged ceasefire. But everyone knows what it means to cease firing. And the parties never ceased firing. There are almost daily firings, if not by both sides, at least one side. And it wasn't like it was just one-sided. One day it might be just the Americans and the next day it might be just the Iranians. But it was consistent. There was no ceasefire. And even now, the Iranians keep saying the strait is closed. And if you look at the ship tracking uh, if you Google that and look at it online, you will see that there is very little traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz. All the ships are further upstream, and they're remaining there, causing problems, of course, for the owners of all those ships who are continually having to pay all these sailors who aren't going anywhere or doing anything. So, I mean, I ultimately don't know how this is going to pan out, but I do believe that either we're going to have to go back and finish the job, or we're going to have to continue surrendering to the Iranians. And that's what we've done. We've allowed their ships to leave port with all that oil that they're selling. Millions of barrels, producing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for this regime that was cash strapped. The whole purpose of the thing was to strangle them financially. And the Trump administration said, oh, no, let's just let all that oil out. And we're going to say we're doing it for the sake of peace. And the Iranians are laughing at you. They really are laughing at you. And you're not going to have a permanent peace. You're just not going to have it. They're not going to allow it. They don't want it. They're religious zealots. They believe God is on their side, that God is going to lead them to victory. And we keep falling for well, I'm not sure. I really think, the president has slept and said this is, it all has to do with the economy. But see, the problem with the economy predates the start of the war. It's not our fault if the president's advisors didn't tell him early on what he was facing. You want to know how bad it really is? Let's just look at what Donald Trump did with Powell. Donald Trump and Powell were constantly at odds. Why? Because Donald Trump wanted interest rates to be lowered. Donald Trump realizes that when money is cheap, businesses are able to borrow and they're able to hire additional people and continue their production for a ever-growing, what they hope is an ever-growing market. But of course, that's not what is happening out there. Everything is falling apart. And hopefully I'm saying the new Fed chairman's name correctly. I think it's Warsh. And so you would think with all of Donald Trump's fits, I'm going to call them, demanding for rates to go down. Notice that how quietly the last Fed meeting went by, and no, there was no rate cut, Mr. President, and you're not calling for a rate cut. And it's not just that, but Warsh penned in one rate increase for sometime later this year. Now, I'm not sure he's going to go through with that, a rate increase, but here's the problem that they have. The Fed has two congressional mandates. They're to keep the job market steady, and they're to keep inflation steady. Now, the way they battle inflation is to raise the interest rates. The way they keep the job market where it needs to be is they lower interest rates. And we're now at a point in time when we need both things simultaneously. And obviously, you can't both raise and lower the rate at the same time now, can you? And so you're going to have to pick which one of these devils or demons, we'll call it, are you going to choose? Are you going to let the labor market deteriorate even further? Or are you going to do something else which is also not going to work? And, we can talk about this on and on and on. And it just, to me, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing because, I suspect they're going to ultimately have to raise interest rates several times to stop the inflation. And will it be successful? I don't know. I think it's just going to stifle further growth, causing even more problems. You know, we're at the point of unsustainability. Sustainability is one of them words that the left put into our lexicon of important words. And right now, what's happening is not sustainable, and it's showing it's how it's breaking and falling apart. And in this case, it started in the private credit. Come to find out all of the problems. I'm not even going to start to detail all that nonsense here. But if I had to sum up the bottom line is there are no longer any ethics. There are no morals. And so everyone is out there uh, to get the dollar and as many of them as they can. And they don't care anymore whether they do it legally or illegally. And unfortunately, the system is allowing that. The system is allowing that. When you look at all the millions being put in the pockets of all these politicians, uh, where we're heading is not a good, pretty picture. I don't know how it's going to play out. I always cite the law of unintended consequences. When these, or let me put it this way, there are these financial institutions that our government has termed they're too big to fail. Well, when they fail, somebody's got to be there bailing them out. And see, we just don't have the money to bail them out anymore. And so you can just figure out how this is going to play out. I don't know exactly when the uneducated investors are going to wake up. See, they teach a lot of these people now in college that, oh, you never lose money in the stock market because the government will come in and bail it out before they let it go down too far. So you just got to be patient and you got to buy the dip. And so far that's been happening, taking the stock market up to record levels as the economy craters. You have Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, all coming out, along with many others that I'm not going to go and name them all, who've all come out and said that spending has cratered. And they're not boding well in this economy. Now, how can it be that all these major companies are having such financial problems with their profits, uh, and yet everything be so rosy? Well, the answer is it's only rosy because they're using fake numbers. It's all phony. The government lies. And a lot of people buy the lies. And, good luck with you. You can have the lies. Me, I see a big crash coming. And I see the collapse of governments all around the world. Because you just cannot borrow yourself to prosperity. It doesn't work. It never has, never will. And so we have all these problems. I don't know how it's going to end up, but I do know it's not going to be pretty. And I know we need to get the Strait of Hormuz open. The sooner we do, the better. And I just don't see that happening. And one of the people I listen to pretty much every day is Johnny Bravo and his financial channel. And as he is so aptly pointing out, we consume 10 million barrels of oil a day. We're pumping 6 million barrels of oil a day. So that means we have to find 4 million barrels somewhere outside of our borders. And that's going to become more and more problematic. The only reason gas is so cheap and everything is we've been emptying our reserves. Good luck to us if there is a war. And we're probably going to have a war because a lot of these countries, their rulers, they don't have any solutions. So the only thing that's going to perhaps work for them is to start a war. Wartime economies, they always find a way. But I'm not sure this time around. I'm really pessimistic about where we stand. And I think the president now realizes where we stand, and that's why he's surrendering to Iran. But that's only going to make it worse. It's only going to, I just feel sorry for the younger generations. And I know Generation Z has a disdain for baby boomer generations. It's nothing personal. It's just they recognize the state of the country that we've left them in. And it is a shameful state. But it is what it is. We got to deal with it. And unfortunately, our politicians are not dealing with it, and we all will pay the price. And with that, I've ranted enough today. I'm going to let you go. Y'all have a great day. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Bye bye.